So I've realized that there's this general layer and feeling of discomfort and anxiety that permeates through a lot of my experiences. And it has been there for a long time since I was a child and while growing up and up until today. And I think as I've grown older, I've been able to be a lot more in touch with myself, been able to reflect and dissect and pull things apart and dig deep and search and try and figure out, why am I feeling this sensation of constantly being on edge, even when I am generally safe and there is nothing pressing or impending that is coming up that would threaten my safety. But there's still this general feeling of discomfort and anxiety that I walk around with every day. And I've begun to understand, I've begun to see as I've reflected that this feeling of being on edge and just having general anxiety has to do with collective trauma and just the experiences of happenings from history, from the past, from the far past and the recent past, and in the today, these experiences that have happened to, not to me, but to other people in this world. I feel that I am absorbing and carrying the trauma and negative incidents of people from the communities that I identify with. So, again, like I said, I've realized that my anxiety stems from carrying the experiences and my interpretation and um, my filtering of what has happened to various community groups that I belong to, just carrying and absorbing those things in my body. So I looked up the term collective trauma because I wanted to have some kind of official definition. So I just searched Google, and more or less, the definition is an emotional and psychological response of an entire group of people, of an entire community, based on a shared experience. And typically, it is a negative experience, a more traumatic experience. And this experience that has happened, it could be systematic, it could be historical, it could be something that happened in the today. It threatens a sense of safety for that group of people. Not to mention that this collective trauma is intergenerational most, if not all of the time. So one of my identity markers is obviously as a woman. So one way that I've felt on edge that I can identify is being a woman and living in a hypersexualized time period, a hypersexualized culture where women's worth, women's bodies, their sense of validation has been conditioned and taught to be attached and connected to their physical appearance and their beauty, the way they look. And for me, I interpret it as this feeling that there's almost this feeling that your body does not belong completely to you. It belongs to society, it belongs to other people around you to pick apart, to observe, to assess, to analyze, to fit and fixate into some kind of fantasy for their own pleasure and their own gain. Not to mention, sadly, all of the violence and the crimes that come along with that come along with these types of mentalities. And I realized that as a woman living in a hypersexualized culture and facing this form of oppression, living within this community, within this collective, as a woman that I feel on edge. I carry that discomfort and that anxiety of that interpretation and mentality of women's bodies with me around daily, and it doesn't make me feel safe a lot of the time. I feel like there's so much I could say about that, but that's just one area that I've been realizing, oh, why do I constantly feel on edge? And then another identity marker is obviously being a person of color, being a Black minority. And I had no words to articulate this or to position this and to understand it, but I've realized recently that another reason I feel on edge is that when I hear stories of violence committed against people of color, especially Black people, but honestly, generally, people of color, those stories and those incidences resonate and remain and stay with me. And they're things that I think about, and they make me uncomfortable. They make me feel depressed. They make me mourn and grieve. So there are stories and there are crimes that I have heard about committed against Black people. I think even just thinking about the oppression of slavery, and after slavery was abolished, all of the struggles that Black Americans faced and all of the discrimination that was cruel and unjust and unfair. I won't go into the specific stories, but hearing those stories everyone has their own relationship to those stories, and that relationship that you have, it comes into you. It's like absorbed into you, into your body, and you are processing that trauma. No, you did not experience it firsthand, but as someone who identifies in some way with that community, I say in some way because I'm not a Black American, but I am Black. So as someone who identifies in some way with that community, you feel an aspect of that trauma remain with you. And then when you just hear about discrimination against people of color, like the Canadian genocide of Indigenous people, and all kinds of stories that are related in this realm, you take those in and you feel them as well. And even if you're not a woman, even if you're not someone of color, you have your own relationship to the groups that you identify with and those collectives and the traumas that are associated with those groups. I just think of other communities, like for example, being part of the LGBTQ community, people who have disabilities, people who have been through natural disasters, people who have been through any form of abuse. Even if you have not experienced it firsthand, that trauma can stay with you. It does stay with you in some way. You have your own relationship to it, and it comes into you. And that's something that I've been dealing with, like, I think for most of my life, and it makes me have this general level of discomfort and anxiety and just feeling of tension and being on edge. And it's hard because it's this invisible layer of anxiety that just kind of permeates through your experiences. It makes you feel unsafe. There are things that trigger that feeling for you, and it's not always understood, and it's not always known by the people around you, because sometimes people say, oh yeah, things are getting better, or this happened, to prove that this is not an area of strife and struggle as much as it was before. And even if things are improving, even if things are changing, you still carry that anxiety and trauma in your body. So I feel that dealing with this collective trauma changes how you show up, how you relate to others, what you can offer, how confident and how safe you feel in a given moment, your sense of well being and your sense of openness. It's this layer of anxiety and discomfort and perhaps fear that washes over and coats everything, coats your daily life, coats your interactions, like this, almost this thing that is just consistently there. And sometimes you notice it and sometimes you don't notice it because maybe the other things that you're dealing with are a lot bigger in that moment, but it's just this, almost this layer that rests over everything. Let me know if you relate. So if this is something that you relate to, and if this is something you're also going through, which I feel like probably everybody is going through this on some level, I just want to encourage you that you're not alone. I want to encourage you that I acknowledge, I see, I experience, I resonate and relate to that general discomfort, that general anxiety that affects your daily life, that you have to walk into situations with, that is largely invisible to a lot of people. And a lot of people maybe don't understand it and they just take you at face value, but this is something that you are living with and moving through. And I want to encourage you to just give yourself a lot of care and compassion, and what you need. Breathe and lean into your self-care. Take care of yourself. Lean into your supports. Get support if needed. My name is Imo, and if you relate to this content, if you've found value in it, please like, comment, and subscribe. It lets the YouTube algorithm know that this content is something that is worth hearing. It's a message that should go forth. Thank you so much for your support, and see you again.